everyone! Welcome to a merit-based episode of ARG Presents. I'm your boy, your good buddy, Amigo Aaron, joined by a man fresh off a glorious Christmas day. Give it up for the BRENT.
I have eaten so much and then eaten those foods again and again, and I've loved every minute of it.
Listen, I'm not going to sit here badmouth you because I've done very similar. The Christmas deliciousness was abundant. We had ham and turkey at my mom's. You know, due to the unpleasantness, we couldn't have a big gathering, so I didn't even see the BRENT for Christmas. But we sort of each visited my parents briefly. Did you even go down there? I can't remember. Did you stop by?
Yeah, Terry and I went by. We were there for about an hour. We wore masks the whole time.
Yeah,
and then we went over to her parents' house, and I wore a mask the whole time. I don't know. The kids, I guess, are at this point equal riskiness as I am. But you know, I don't want to get anybody sick.
It's funny. I see no one, and despite the fact that I go work in prisons occasionally, I see no one hardly, and I feel pretty good. In fact, I've never had I'm going to knock on wood. I've never had a healthier year in terms of being sick.
Ditto.
Yeah, and a lot of that I've been told is the fact that kids not going to school and bringing all that crap home.
Well, and also you have to think about it because, like, here's something people don't realize: hospitals are having like their worst years ever. Sure, COVID's really bad, and they're full up from that, and this doesn't apply to like big cities where they're over capacity and you got to feel for them. I'm talking about mid-size and small town hospitals. They don't have the injuries that they normally would have. Like, oh, I broke my arm. Who breaks their arm? No one's going anywhere. So it's a strange time indeed.
There's gonna be some broken arms from the amount of people that are sick of looking at each other right now. So I can tell you that right now. People are probably getting rid of breaking arms. Speaking of arm breaking and list making, we spun the wheel last week.
Yes.
And came up with the unusual first time deal. And we're going to be doing the high score challenge.
Yes.
BRENT, tell the people what is entailed in this high score challenge.
You mean just for our little thing?
Just, and tell them what the whole concept behind this piece you made up.
Well, we picked two games from the vast assortment of games and decided we were going to challenge our community to go for the high score, right? And this isn't some militant thing. We just screenshots at the end were all we really cared about. And we had, we had a few entries. This was probably the worst week to do this.
Yeah.
Because I know everyone was extremely busy.
Oh, yeah.
But high score challenges, Aaron, ever since the arcades first came to be, you had high score challenges.
Yeah.
And it's crazy. Speed runs have kind of replaced high score challenges in a lot of ways. Normally, people will do a speed run before they'll do high scores now, or at least they get a lot more press. But high score challenges are still alive and well. The game I played, Popeye, the high score for it was set in 2017. So it goes to show that it's still a big part of gaming.
Yeah, I agree. It's funny you should mention speedruns. And they had speedruns really, there were no speedruns as far as I know back in the early days. I never heard of such a thing until I think that might be a YouTube phenomenon more than anything else. But
well, it's gone on. YouTube,
that's where it started. Yeah.
No. They were doing speedruns back before YouTube even existed. Yeah.
Well, occasionally I'll watch a speed reference. I don't want to watch some sucker try 700-hour speed run, but I'll watch one occasionally. And what I find more fascinating is when people try to fake them. Those are the best. I do enjoy videos where they expose these suckers. And what I like is that there's like a committee of these speed runners that are all like seasoned pros. Because one thing I've learned about being like a real big time speed runner, and it's sort of like the same thing with a high score person. You basically have to dedicate your life to it because there's other people who dedicate their life to it, and and they'll go. They don't have nothing else going on, And so, the community is super tight, and they're also they're judgmental. I guess is the best way to put it. Like I saw a couple people they talked about who got high score challenges, but their reputation wasn't the best. And despite the fact that the speedrunners couldn't find anything wrong with the video they submitted, they still wouldn't accept the score.
Well, no, that's not true. I actually know who you're talking about.
Oh, this is multiple people, not just one. I saw this happen a couple times. They wouldn't accept scores.
Usually when that is the case, it is because they've been caught cheating on other games in the past. And that's the thing. Just like high scores, and we need to mention the elephant in the room that's not you. Billy Mitchell, darling of video games, now, kind of the pariah.
Yeah.
Because he has been caught, proven, if you will, cheating and saying that high score happened on what appears to have been either a modified board or, there are times that he's come up with save states and stuff like that, and it's super tarnished his reputation. And really, in my opinion, you have to question. There's no question. Let me back up. There's no question Billy is good at gaming, right? Because he is. However, you have to question his high scores from beginning to end. When you get caught cheating, that's a thing. That's a thing that happens. You get questioned.
I really like Billy Mitchell. I mean, and let me finish that up. He was always he's not the arrogant, complete jerk. I mean, he's arrogant.
That's a character.
Don't get me wrong, but I mean, he's not the biggest scumbag from like King of Kong, which is a great flick. He's one of the all-time great heels. And when he turned up in wrestling about a month ago, I almost died. He's perfect fit for pro wrestling.
Yeah.
But he did tarnish his legacy with his and what the sad thing is, he didn't need to do it. He could. I mean, listen, he's great. He's proficient at so many games. You don't have to be king of all games. If they had like a track and field style tournament where you played like a multiple games, he would be right up there. He's one of the all-time great players, and it's a shame. He did a lot of charity work and whatnot, and it's a shame that his legacy has been tarnished. And plus, in the aftermath hasn't been good either. He has not. He all the lawsuits and stuff he's put out, silly. Well,
silly.
He's trying.
He doubled when he got caught. He doubled down when he should have just, said, okay, you got me.
Here, the thing, the long and short of it is, it's a tragedy. He's trying to do what he can to salvage his rep. It's not. I mean, he didn't have any choices because listen. This is an unforgiving community. They're suspicious. They should be, by the way. Don't get me wrong, because you're talking. I mean, this is one of those internet-based communities a lot of times where you have to take people at their word, and no one's words were the crap, whether they're good or not, because it's the internet. Just by definition, you're a jerk. You have to prove you're not jerkness. It's a shame because he was the poster boy, and a lot of those guys were exposed. The fellow that did the old record on Dragster that record stood for 1,000 years, and it was proven that he lied about it.
Yeah.
And I will say, at least Billy Mitchell, a lot of the stuff he did was in public, so that's why people know he's a good player. But some of these guys, they they just make crap up. It's just the way it is. So it's a real bummer. And so along those lines, I just want to say that I think Brent made up all of his scores today, and I I want to go on record that my scores are legit. Brent's scores are dubious, to say the least. I believe he was playing a crooked machine. That's my guess, anyway.
Hacked hardware.
There you go.
I went in and hacked the game to be easier, to give me more points per thing.
Yeah, there you go. It's funny. I don't know. Just getting back to Billy for 1 second. If I was watching one of Jack Flack's streams of the day, and he actually visited Billy's restaurant down there in Florida, and it was disappointing. And he acted, and when he asked about Billy Mitchell, they sort of said he doesn't come around, basically. So, and they said they had 2 arcade games in the whole place. So, and there was like one of those Pac-Man Galagas, I think was one of them. So it's a real letdown visiting the old Billy Mitchell restaurant. But that's the way it goes. I hear his hot sauce is good though, so there you go. So, with all that said, we had to choose 2 games to go after on high scores, and of course Brent made it a spur of the moment challenge. So I just had to come up with something out of my hiney. I'll lead the charge this week with my game, which was Gyruss. Gyruss. Or if you're an idiot, some people call it Gyruss. Those people are wrong. It's Gyruss. Gyruss, a very interesting game that was a arcade port from the arcade. You know, obviously from the arcade. The game in the arcade was an awesome game. One of the first games, I believe, Brent. Now stop me if I'm wrong. I'll look to see if I can find actual proof of this, but I didn't see it anywhere. But I think this was the first stereo game.
I have no idea.
Because Gyruss was a game that was well known for its awesome sound. It was a great game. Released in '83, the coin-op by Konami. Gyruss has you circling the top of the screen. It's a shooter-style game that has you shooting from the top of the screen, spinning around almost like you were playing a Tempest, but a lot faster. And the enemies sort of
not faster.
It's faster. Well, you're right.
That's
Tempest gets
faster
pretty.
than Tempest.
Tempest gets pretty fast.
Yeah.
But the enemy ships kind of swirl in from the outside of the screen, and basically descend like down into effectively what they're going into. It looks like deep space, but it's almost like a pit that they go into, and then they sort of congregate at the bottom of the pit, and then will occasionally come back up. But you've got to try to shoot them and kill them all. It's a neat game, and the game itself would be fine, but it wouldn't be famous without the awesome music that's in it, because the music really makes the game, doesn't it, Brent?
It does. It really helps it.
Yeah. And so when you port a game like Gyruss, the music was, you had to have the music. If you didn't have the music, you would not have the game. That's what blew me away about this game, was the fact that they actually managed to get the music down in the Atari version, which is what we're looking at today.
It was pretty close, yeah.
And it's funny, I played this on stream, Brent, and the first time I played it, I was like, literally, I couldn't believe it, how good it looked. Now, I guess we should probably look at a comparison between the two here if you're watching at home. Gyruss is a pretty sharp-looking game, and like I said, has the sound to boot. The Atari version, you think to yourself, oh, the Atari 2600, pretty remedial system by today's standards. It certainly is. But it was amazing what they could squeeze out of this thing. And what they squeezed out of this thing was a Gyruss-like game. I mean, you get the feeling you're playing Gyruss. Of course, you've got the things that Atari 2600 games suffer from, which is a little flicker, not as many characters on the screen, not as much stuff moving on the screen. But for the most part, they get it right. It's got a starry background. When the things fly by, when I say starry, I mean they become smaller.
Scaling.
That's right. And I guess you wouldn't really call it scaling.
It's fake scaling.
Right. Yeah. Right. But the one thing they brought over was the music, and the music from the arcade machine is Toccata and Fugue in D minor from Bach. It's an awesome sound when it starts up. It really kicks up and cranks up to a nice tune. And the Atari does the same thing. Now the Atari version, I mentioned the arcade version came out in '83. Atari's version came out in '84. Gyruss got ported to a lot of machines, Brent, but it wasn't like mega ported, but it got a lot more ports than I thought. There was a 5200 release and an 8-bit release for the Atari, which of course basically the same thing. I didn't realize the ColecoVision got a port of this. Did you? Did you know that?
No.
I never played that. C64, the NES. Have you ever played the NES version of this?
Nope.
Yeah, well, that's one to try.
Anytime I play this, I go arcade.
Yeah. And then of course Windows got one in one of the retrospectives on the Xbox 360. I believe that was in part of their the Xbox, whatever that arcade thing was, where you could build your own arcade. I think Gyruss was one of the games in there. Gyruss appeared in the 1001 Video Games You Must Play Before You Die, so it's pretty popular. I looked up how it did in Japan to see if the actual arcade machine made any money, and it did. It was listed as amongst the top earners for the year it was released, so it was pretty popular in Japan. Brent, I wanted to see how this thing fared on the Atari itself. And I went down a rabbit hole, and I'm going to go off topic for a minute here, but I thought this was so neat that I kind of wanted to share it. I found a list of the top 20 Atari 2600 by sales, the top games on the Atari 2600. We're not going to go over 20 games, but I will say the games, the top 10 surprised me. When you think the Atari 2600, Brent, what games do you think of in terms of the most popular or best games?
Well, I mean, those are two different things.
Right.
What do I think sold the best?
Mm-hmm.
Pac-Man, E.T., Combat.
Well, Combat was I believe Combat was shipped with the Atari.
It was a pack-in for some. Yeah.
So you're right, and it's surprisingly right, because when you think of the 2600, two of the biggest floppery doos on there. In fact, think about it. This is the game they said killed all video games in America, which was E.T. E.T. was the 9th best-selling game for the or tied for 9th with 1.9 million sales. So you can't really blame E.T. or Howard Scott Warshaw, because they just overproduced the carts.
Well, they did overproduce the cart, but you're missing the bigger picture.
It stunk.
People bought the game, and it was massively returned, first of all. And second of all, people were not happy with the game.
Yeah,
buying the game is only half the challenge.
It is neat it is neat. First of all, you don't ever take returns. They should have learned that. Just brief, the top 10 for this Miss Pac-Man E.T. Demon Attack had 2 million units moved. Frogger. You know, it's amazing how popular Frogger was on these classic systems. Every system, Frogger is amongst the top 10. And it's such a simple game, but it's always up there. Space Invaders, which was a great version. The 2600 probably had the best Space Invaders ports, just because of all the difficulty switch settings. You could, the different stuff you could do, the game styles. Then you got Missile Command, Asteroids, Pitfall #2 at 4 million, and then Pac-Man at 7.7. Pac-Man sold 7.7 million units.
Yeah, because people wanted it.
That's huge. It makes you wonder how many Ataris were out there. Sadly, looking over the top 20, Gyruss is not on here, although Parker Brothers did score a top 20 hit with one of their other big hits, Star Wars The Empire Strikes Back, it's had a weird resurgence in popularity here recently. So, let's talk about Gyruss, the Atari game, in terms of, since this is the high score challenge, let's talk about Gyruss in terms of strategies in this. Now, Gyruss is a game where you start off, you go at the beginning, you go two rounds, and then you basically fly to a planet. There's a backstory to Gyruss, by the way. I should probably mention this because it puts the game in context. This is straight from the manual that came with the Atari 2600 version. 3 billion miles is a long way from home, but there's no shorter route from outer Neptune to Earth. As if that weren't enough, it's got to be a shootout all the way. You alone in your rapid-firing spaceship, swirling in a circular flight pattern, orbiting to the right, arcing to the left, trying to mow down wave after wave of enemy plane formations, rocketing meteors, and runaway satellites. Stops at Uranus, Saturn, Jupiter, and Mars will mark your progression towards Earth. Each one's a short visit, though. Then it's off again to the next planet, the next wave of enemies. Reach Earth in one piece, and maybe you'll think twice about leaving home again. Then again, maybe not. So there you go. You're basically trying to get home. It's almost like a Christmas game, Brittany. I'm sure that's part of it.
Why not? Everything else seems to be.
I was disappointed. We mentioned that Space Invaders had all kinds of and Asteroids too. They had all kinds of crazy difficulty switch settings that you could come up with. You could make the asteroids invisible, your ship invisible. You could do all this crazy stuff. Multiple UFOs. This game just basically has difficulty ranging from easiest to most difficult 1 to 4, which is kind of a bummer. And aside from that, that's pretty much all you've got on this version. I guess there's not a whole lot you could do with Gyruss like you could Space Invaders, but still, that would have been nice. Again, this game gives you 2 warps to the first planet, and every subsequent planet it takes 3 warps to get to. And after you get to a planet, you get a bonus stage. Now, in the arcade, the bonus stages are labeled. Like, they'll tell you it's a bonus stage. In this game, when you get to a bonus stage, it just starts, and you see that ships aren't shooting at you. And so you know, okay, this is a bonus stage.
Well, it comes after the planet. So.
Right, but still, it doesn't say bonus stage or anything. I was surprised, and I'm not going to go over this because there's a ton of them, but there's a pretty complicated point structure in Gyruss.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm looking. There's a whole page of different point totals, and I mean, some of these you can really score big points if you know what you're doing. The best thing to do, of course, is try to take out entire formations as they zoom in. You get a higher bonus score. These little satellites will pop out at the beginning or when you need them, and what they'll do is if you shoot them, it basically doubles your fire. In the arcade, you get basically 2 shots that come out. And the Atari version, it's more like a staggered shot, isn't it, Brent? They don't really have. I mean, it makes the same difference, but it doesn't look quite the same as it does in the arcade.
Well, it goes wider. Your single shot is right down the middle, and your double shot is left and right of your ship, so it does cover more territory.
Right.
Which is mainly the benefit.
Yeah. What did you think of this one, Brent? I don't know if have you played this one before this week?
I have not. Gyruss on the 2600, mighty impressive.
Yeah. Oh,
mighty
really?
Impressive.
Oh, yeah. I agree.
The fake sprite scaling is really well done. The sound effects are awesome, or the music, I should say. The difficulty of this game is the enemies, and it's a lot like the arcade version. The enemies will hide their shots inside of their formations.
Yeah.
So you're gunning down formations when they're flying in, and you'll notice a little yellow dot or cluster of dots that will just sneak right in on you if you're not paying enough attention. So that's the first thing you have to learn. And then really the game is pretty autopilot up until the asteroids start coming at you.
That was I got killed by asteroids. That's what got me. When I finally went down, those asteroids whirl out of there with no warning, and they're fast.
Yeah, they're very few frames that they're on screen before they hit you. Plus, they are positioned to where you want to be to shoot the incoming waves. So that's very clever. I think this was an incredible port for what was possible on the 2600. I think there are some point total things to look out for when you're going for a high score. Of course, clusters of enemies were the biggest. But if you shoot too many enemies while they're swarming to the middle, you will not get your double shot opportunity. And the double shot aliens actually are worth a fair amount of points. So it's a give and take. Sometimes you want to let a wave of enemies go to the middle so that you'll get the satellite pop up for the double shot and the extra points.
It's funny, I never did that.
Yeah.
I never did that one time. There's something about this game is so hot and heavy, and I mean, okay, I've played this in the arcade forever. We almost bought one of these, if you'll recall.
Yeah.
Because I always loved this game, and when these guys swirl in and that music, it really is a tight package, and it makes you want to just go crazy. Nothing. There's very few arcade games that get me in the mood for killing like this game. Like, this stuff swirls in, the noises it makes. A lot of people call this Gyruss in a pit, and in some ways that's a lot of like what it is. I mean, in the same way Gyruss gets you pumping to go kill stuff, this does, but Gyruss doesn't have the cool music this does. And the Atari, like I said, I had a very similar feeling.
When I played Gyruss.
This. Oh, I know, but I mean, on the 2600, Gyruss give you a similar feeling. Now, I want to go over the scores here, Brent,
okay.
real quick. And I will say,
disclaimer.
This was a holiday week, so but we still actually did pretty well in terms of getting some action on these games. I wish I'd gotten to play these more than I did. I've played a ton of Gyruss, and I think I could do better, but this was the best I could do this week. So we had a list of people that sent in scores. I'm going to go down the list in the order from lowest to highest score. Coming in last place.
You don't have to mention the scores except for the top score.
Well, I'm going to mention the scores. I want to say them. So our buddy Frodo NL kicked in with 4,400 points. The boat got 69,100 points. Myself, I came in after the boat. They got to beat him. 105,800 points. Brent, you just nipped by me at 109,300. Z9K9 went bananas with 196,400 points. But the King Dong of Gyruss on the 2600, Mitsuyama, 205,000 points.
Yeah,
a hefty score.
Real
now,
good score.
I will say, I felt pretty good about my score. I still do, to be honest with you. I didn't lose by that much. This game,
you lost by over.
Well, I didn't lose to you by that much. But the truth of the matter is, this game, you're cruising along, and then it goes down. I mean, instantly the mood changes, doesn't it, Brent?
The difficulty ramps up pretty good.
Like, Gyruss is like,
while, but
it takes off the training wheels. And then once the training wheels come off, it's time to die a lot. So, there you go. I did look up some reviews on this game, believe it or not.
Well, shoot the Discord reviews.
Well, I will. I looked up some reviews on this, and these are reviews. Of course, a lot of these are more modern reviews. From 2003, the video game critic gave this thing a B. Wood Grain Wonderland, which is a great name. This is from 2017. Gave this a B minus. The All-Star Game Guide must have been losing their mind. They gave this like 2 out of 5 stars, which is I think is
that's why I don't go over loser reviews.
Well, listen, I'm not gonna call them losers. I'm just saying they're losers. So let's go to our Discord. We got some reviews. This is from the Boat. He writes, Gyruss, it's pronounced Gyruss, he says, which I disagree. It's probably the best arcade conversion on the Atari 2600. Scaling sprites, 6 on-screen enemy ships at once, bonus stage, animation of your ship zooming off into the next zone, and most mind-blowing of all, a full polyphonic soundtrack powered by none other than J.S. Bach himself. This is a must-play if you're a 2600 fan, and worth a go even if you're not, just to see how far the system can be pushed, even before the homebrew scenes. And Boat was a big fan of this game.
I agree. This is one you've got to play.
Mitsuyama chimed in as well. He said, this is a great little game. I can't comment on how close this is to the arcade original, but it doesn't matter, as it's still a great game even on its own right. Fun, addictive, responsive, and fantastic soundtrack to boot. I can imagine any 2600 owner getting this in '84 would have been shoved with it. 8 out of 10. So 2 positive scores for that game. I looked up some extra bonus goodies on this. So believe it or not, we cover a lot of the old ZX, Brent. There was a ZX port of this game by Parker Brothers that was announced and was going to be released. Guess what? Never got made. This and Star Wars were both announced. Never got made by Parker Brothers, but Domark stepped in and did the Star Wars game for the Spectrum, which is pretty good. But the Spectrum apparently never got an official version of Gyruss, so that's a bummer for them. Overall, though, a fun game. I wish I'd done better, but I'll stand by my score on this. This game is they did a good job giving everything you got from the 2600 to put this game over. Big thumbs up from me.
Great controls too.
Yeah. And one more thing I should mention. In the arcade, one of the best parts is when you finish a stage and you're heading to a planet, you can control your ship all the way to the planet. It's a dumb thing. It has nothing to do with any of the game.
Little victory lap.
And you can do that in this game too. They put that in. So those are the little attention to details that I enjoy. So there you go. So Brinster, what do you have to push up this week in the high score challenge?
Well, I went with a game that I thought that everyone was going to put up competitive scores with, not because it's an easy game, but because it's a learning game. You can actually really, with enough play, you can kind of see how this game works. And I chose Popeye from the arcade. And I'll have to say, Aaron, I would have thought this would have got a lot more high score entries back in the day. It's an incredibly colorful game. And it did something just different enough than everything that was going on around it that I thought it would stick out. But the reviews for this, for the time of its release, were really poor. A lot of people just said, you know what, this is just doing the same old. You're not giving us anything new. A lot of people did comment that the graphics were incredibly colorful and well done, but they felt the gameplay itself was tiresome. It's been done to death.
It has? What other game is like Popeye? Name one.
I'm just telling you why. These aren't my opinions. This is just what
You know,
others have
there
reviewed.
there was a time, okay, I noticed, especially the number one culprit is Donkey Kong, okay, and this is a Nintendo game, and it came after Donkey Kong, and Donkey Kong was supposed to be Popeye. I'm sure I'll get into this, but that everything that they just assumed that Donkey Kong was a game and everyone was ripping it off. They didn't think to themselves, hey, there's a new genre here called platform gaming. No, they didn't see it that way. Every game ripped off Donkey Kong, and so I wouldn't be surprised if this game fell into that trap. And it's not the least bit like Donkey Kong. Idiots.
Well,
Carry on.
you have to also remember this came out towards the fall of the arcades, where people, people weren't willing to give things the benefit of the doubt anymore. They wanted new, they wanted innovative, and they wanted it now. And I understand when this was released, you know, reviewers, magazines that did this sort of stuff for a living, why they would be a little jaded to Popeye. However, I completely disagree with what they're saying. I think this is a very unique game. I think it's a very colorful game. I think the sound on it is good, not great. And I think the gameplay is really very unique and very challenging. So for Popeye, you play as Popeye, and you are trying to win the affection of Olive Oyl. To do this, Olive Oyl is throwing down her love in various forms. The first stage, she'll throw hearts, and you have to collect the hearts before they get to the bottom. And if they sit at the bottom for too long, they'll sink and break, and basically you'll lose a life and have to kind of start again. What makes this very unique is the multi-level. It's a single screen game, and there's 3 different screens. The enemy, Bluto, will basically kill you if you touch him. Plus, he can jump up and down platforms. Plus, he can do a double dive where he'll jump 2 platforms down. And really, nowhere is safe. It's all about controlling your environment and being where he's not. Also, you have the Sea Hag, who is trying to help Bluto out. She'll throw bottles from either end of the screen, and also Bluto himself has a projectile attack. So it gives you a lot of things to watch out for. Not necessarily enemy variety, because Bluto's kind of the same on every stage. He has the same moveset everywhere he goes. The only attack you have, and this is sort of a Energizer style power up, is you can collect a can of spinach once per stage that allows you to hit him and send him flying. And that kind of takes care of him for a little while. The second stage is almost like a night scene, and you are traveling a landscape while Olive Oyl sings to you, and music notes come out, and you have to collect those. And it has while the setup is pretty much the same. You have 4 levels that you can traverse through ladders. It also has a seesaw mechanic that allows you to quickly return to the top, and it has the same enemies, the same feel as the first level. It's very unique. It's very familiar, I mean. And then your final stage is on a pirate ship, and you have to Olive Oyl is yelling for help, and you have to basically catch her letters, which build a ladder to the top where she is standing, and you will then repeat the stages, and all repeat stages have more difficulty. Now, why did I pick this as a high score game? Well, first of all, there are point opportunities that you probably wouldn't consider in normal gameplay. For example, on the ship stage, you get 1,000 points for hitting the vulture. That is the single highest point total you can get over and over. There are other bonus ways to get points that you can do once a stage, but 1,000 points in this game is a lot of points.
I beat the hell out of that vulture.
Yeah.
I picked up on that I knew about that, and so anytime I was like I was a anti-vulture missile everywhere he went. My fist was, so I understand that one all too well.
And the other thing that the high score for the world record for this game, Bluto will throw bottles, and if you position yourself just perfectly, he'll continuously throw bottles, and every time you hit and break a bottle, it's 100 points. So you can actually kind of set it up where he throws 16 bottles at you. And when that happens, that's a lot of points as long as you can keep up with your punch button. And the punch button is only good for breaking bottles, collecting spinach, and on the first board, there's a barrel that is overhead that you can hit a punching bag and drop the barrel down. And if you get it over Blutus's head, you get a bonus points for that.
You combined their names just now.
I know.
Like it. Bluto and Brutus. You called him Blutus. Blutus. That's what he should be known as. Blutus. That's both the guys.
So, in the terms of challenging, because each loop gets a little bit harder, there is a max out point, but I never reached it. I feel that I'm okay at this game, and I did feel myself getting better, and I felt myself finding more point opportunities. And for a high score game, that's really what it's all about, is finding those point opportunities to get your score up. The way you play Donkey Kong the first time you see it is completely different than the way you play Donkey Kong for points. It's a whole different game.
Yeah.
And this is sort of the same way. You start taking risks that you wouldn't normally take just to get the points. Now, Aaron, I know you've played this before, and I know this is an arcade darling for you. Did it hold up on playing today? Or this week?
I'll tell you something. This game really surprised. Of course, I will say this is one of the few games we actually looked at twice. One of our early episodes, Boat covered this on the NES. So if you're interested in seeing how that port looks, and I believe we go into the story of why there's a difference between Brutus and Bluto in that episode as well. But this is the arcade version of this. I played the game of this I played the most is the Coco clone, the Sailor Man. A brilliant game.
Yes.
A brilliant clone of this game. And I was like, man, this thing's dead on. Of course, the Coco, it's going to run a little slower. But I mean, it's not like I haven't played the arcade game much times. But I don't really pay much attention. I just kind of play it for fun. So here I am trying to point press and do well. I had forgotten, or maybe I think I came to the startling realization that I'm not as good at games as I used to be, and I hate it. I'm serious, because this game was much more difficult than I remembered it. In fact, so much so that I went and checked the dip switch settings. I was like, I think this is set too high, because I don't remember it being this tough. I don't remember Brutus or Bluto being this aggressively. I mean, I remember schooling this guy in the arcade. I would be laughing as I ran back and forth. But whatever skills I had to rebuild to a certain degree, because early on I was getting humiliated. I couldn't get off the first level. I'm like, my God, what's happened to my skills? Man, on the Coco, I crushed this game. And you're right. You have to get back into it. I played this one a lot more than Gyruss. I felt like I was making pretty good progress on Gyruss. But on this, I would get killed all the time early and just start over. It was depressing as heck to play it. And so I would basically just as soon as I lost a life on the first level, just hit the button. Something else in this game, you don't get an extra Popeye until you hit 40K. Well, heck, I never hit 40K. So you can forget about that. You better get in and score your points quick. My strategies on the opening level were basically to try to keep a buffer level between me and Brutus, because the number one way I got killed was him reaching down and whacking me. And man, he is good at it, and he's fast. Something else is the Sea Hag can appear like instantly, and she can really hose you with those beer bottles, chucking empties. as I said in the ad for Sailor Man. But the first level was way harder than I remembered it being, and I've played this. It's like I haven't played this game for years. The second level is the easiest level, far and away. It's also, I like the teeter-totter mechanic. I always have. I always thought that was cool. You got Sweet Pea up there with the balloon. I like the fact that they worked in some of the Popeye's back catalog characters. Sweet Pea's in there and the Sea Hag. It's a shame they couldn't get his dad in there or Wimpy. Some of these
Wimpy's
other guys.
in there.
Where's
Wimpy's on
the
the
boat?
No, he's on the other side of the teeter-totter.
But he doesn't do anything. He just stands there.
Well, he boosts you up.
No. I mean, I want to see him actually get involved. Also, the Jeep's not in there. I like to see the Jeep get involved. The Goon. There's some guys. If I used to watch the King Syndicate Popeye cartoons when I was a kid, so I'm pretty familiar with the Popeye. Popeye's been around for like 8,000 years.
Yeah.
So he's got a rich backstory in there. But I mean, they worked in some of the guys, which is cool. I think this is a wildly original. It's an abstract. It reminds me in some ways of like a wrestling arcade game. It's just sort of an abstract gameplay. There's no it's not a pattern gameplay at all. As far as I know, there's no pattern you can go through in this game because Brutus is relentless in trying to catch you. I mean, that guy is a great, well-designed character. The fact when he does that double jump and the whole screen shakes, it's very impressive. I think the three levels are diverse. I think a fourth level probably would have added to the appeal, sort of like Donkey Kong.
Yeah, I think it needed a fourth.
But it is what it is. The graphics are off the charts. Yeah. Unparalleled at the time. The sound's okay. It's got sort of a Donkey Kong level of sound. I'm pretty sure they run on similar hardware. Certainly sound-wise. But man, this is an all-time stone cold classic. In fact, even more so than Gyruss, I think. I don't think this is a player like Gyruss, but the overall package is top shelf. It comes in a cabinet that's basically the Nintendo style arcade cabinet of the time, which was the same one that Radar Scope and Donkey Kong Jr. They all came in it. It's a good, clean cabinet. The bezel art is beautiful.
Absolutely.
The marquee is beautiful. The side art, it's just a picture of Popeye or nothing. But still, it's overall it's a good looking cabinet. It's got that kind of powder blue with the orange. Nintendo really, even early on, they had a style and a way about them that worked. And their arcade portfolio can't be underestimated. They put out some good stuff, and this is amongst the top things that they ever did. I mean, is it as good as Donkey Kong? No. But in terms of graphics and playability, it's a great game, and I love it. I wish I'd done better, but I felt like I had a decent run. I was pretty consistent with the scores I got. I was always getting in the 30s, and I could see a room for improvement there. Like you said, a lot of it's just learn how to manipulate. In some ways, it's kind of like Burger Time. You sort of or Donkey Kong. You sort of have to manipulate the enemy and to go to where you want, because if he gets anywhere near you, he'll hose you.
Well, and there is some manipulation that can be done. What I found to be most useful when going for score for this is you want to be as high to the top of the screen as possible, because the notes or hearts or letters that you catch during that time are worth more points. So what I would do is the very top level you can't really do much on because it doesn't go all the way across the screen. But the next level down, I would lure Bluto below that level, and then I was able to run back and forth on that level, keeping him below me. And I could make him jump up at me, and then turn around, go the other way, jump up at me, turn around. So he was always below me. And I found that was the best strategy for me on that level. Also, after you get the spinach and you hit him and he goes into the water, you can guarantee a 4,000 point bucket drop if you time it correctly. On the video I provided, I was never able to get it, but I did later on get to the point where I could reliably get 4,000 points as he would climb up or as he would move across the bottom of the stage. That is vitally important.
That's the way I used to do it when I was younger. I could never land that 4,000 point bucket. And the thing is, I remember, because he'll pause down there, and if you time it right, you can get him. I never could do it, man. I guess, like I said, it was demoralizing. Because I remember as a kid, that's the way I did it. I was like, and I would cackle with delight. You know, I was like, that was part of it. You know, it's gratifying to kick this guy's hiney after he spends the entire game trying to murder you and you can't do anything about it.
Here's the other thing. When you have spinach, heart pickups, or, you know, the things coming down from the top of the screen are doubled.
Yeah.
So it is in your best interest to pick up the spinach when you have a lot of symbols at the top of the screen that will allow you to double those points. It's all these type of things that are necessary to really get a good score.
Yeah.
Also, if you have a heart that is sinking at the bottom of the screen, or a note or whatever, getting the spinach stops that from sinking.
Yeah.
So you can, if you're in a bad shape, you can actually get the spinach and stop that from going into the water any deeper.
Yeah, you really need to hold off on eating that spinach until you find. It's almost like a get out of jail free card when it comes to those hearts. And you're right. One thing I knew early on was about the point doubling for it. It's funny how I got to give them design credit, because this game is very similar to the cartoon. If you're watching Popeye cartoons, he spends the whole video getting the crap beat out of him, humiliated, looking like an idiot. And at the end, when he eats the spinach, at the very end of the short, he goes out and destroys the bad guy. That's exactly what this game is. I mean, they got it perfect. I was surprised that hitting Bluto didn't give you big points. That was one thing that did surprise me, because I kept looking. I was like, "Here we go," and you don't get jack, you know.
And here's the thing: knowing that, you need to use it at better times.
Yeah.
Another thing you can always do is when you're collecting the music notes on the second stage. Excuse me. If you immediately jump off the top ledge, turn around, jump in the hole in the middle ledge, and jump on the seesaw, you will always catch for 500 points every time. And there's absolutely no reason not to do it, because it doesn't change the positioning. There's no notes to collect, and it's an easy 500 points every time. Making that jump and grabbing hold of the baby is another big point pressing technique while you're waiting for other things to happen.
You've got a little more space on the second level to operate, because it's harder for Bluto to get around, and it's not that the notes. I don't know what it is about that level, but it's easier to navigate than the first level, and certainly easier than the third level.
And on the final level, as we've already mentioned, if you're really going to point press, you keep taking out the buzzers over and over and over. It's another board that you can manipulate to get continuous bottle thrown at you. It's not really recommended at this stage from what I've seen, but it can be done, because if you get caught in that animation where you're punching bottles and the vulture comes down at an angle from the top or an angle at the bottom, your punches will not hit him, and you'll die from it.
Yeah, he comes at weird angles sometimes. What I like to do is get on that top treadmill thing that would go across the screen and just go back and forth and punch him from up there. And you can also get collect a lot of the help letters up there too, doing it that way.
Yeah. And so overall, those are the strategies that I picked up during my revisit of this game.
Yeah.
You can't get frustrated.
Yeah, you can.
Well, you shouldn't get frustrated. It's a hard game.
Yeah, it is.
And because of that, you're going to have some restarts. It's just inevitable. But it's something that if you keep playing it, you do get better. You do start seeing how you can manipulate things. You start seeing when is the best time to do things. Because if you just run and immediately get your spinach, you don't want to do that. Spinach is your get out of jail free card, whether it be for a heart, whether it be for a bottle getting ready to hit you, whatever it is, that it stops all action and allows you not to die.
We should mention that when you go through all the levels on this and it starts back up, it gets significantly harder because then you've got the sea hag throwing skulls at you from the top of the screen. They bounce down. I didn't remember this happening on the second wave. I thought this came on the third set of levels, so I was surprised that it happened so early. This adds basically another projectile you have to deal with on top of the bottles, on top of the Bluto. You have to deal with all this stuff, and it makes it a lot harder because the skulls bounce in sort of odd ways. They don't come down in a set pattern like, say, the spring on Donkey Kong. They will bounce and come down levels at different areas at different points, and it makes it difficult to judge where you can go and where without having to deal with them.
Absolutely.
I found it very challenging to get past the second set of levels with those skulls in the mix.
So, as a high score game, I think this is an absolute fantastic game.
Yeah. Good choice.
And I think a lot of the community agreed with me from what I saw. Aaron, do you got some reviews that you want to read up there from the community for us?
Sure. Boat wrote, possibly the world's first photorealistic arcade game. Popeye's graphics seem like they're taken from 3 years in the future from its 1982 debut. Even today, the renderings of the Sailor Man and his supporting cast are impressive. That said, this isn't one of my favorites. Much like Aaron and Killer Instinct, this game is too manic and complicated, and therefore I don't like it. The first level requires you to pick up way too many hearts in advance, and you never get a chance to strategize, because as soon as you stop, the witch starts chucking empties at you. Give me Sailor Man on the Coco any day with its dialed-back difficulty in the earlier levels. Or on second thought, fire up Brazilian Popeye on the O2 instead. No, never fire that up. Mitsuyama writes, this is the epitome of classic arcade gaming. You put your 10p in the game, and the game over in 5 minutes later, but there's something about the game that keeps you coming back for more. The great graphics and sound are complemented by the great gameplay that you can expect from Nintendo. I only had time for a few games, so didn't get that close to discovering the game's secrets, but I'll keep coming back to this one. 7 out of 10. A good choice there. I agree with you. Brett, why don't we go ahead and mosey on over to our scores here.
All right.
Let's see how we did. So, bringing up the rear, our good buddy Frodo NL, 5,300 points. Boat chimed in with 12,900 points. Mitsuyama, who won Gyruss, only had time for a few games and still managed to get 13,430. Buck Owens, perennial Coco Talk game master, chimed in with, I can actually say I beat Buck Owens in something, Brent. He came in with 33,880. Your boy, Amigo Aaron, came in 38,250. 38,250, not too bad. I was depressed that I couldn't get higher, especially after you posted that 32,000 score early on. I was like, man, and it's funny, when I first saw your early score, I thought, that's crap. And then I played the game, I'm like, man, that's good. The Brent came in second, 60,540. That's a good score. And then Z9K9 was King Dong on Popeye, an impressive 68,000 even on this game. Very impressive.
And
scores.
The world record currently for this game that I could find is 3,272,590.
There you go. It's funny. I should mention, I looked up Gyruss as well to see what the record was, and they've got 2 records on there. One for the emulation and one for the actual playing it on an actual VCS. The VCS one was submitted in 2004, and it's 1,023,100. That's on a real Atari. The emulated version was submitted on 7/8/19, so just last year, and is only 420,400. I looked at our scores. We're actually knocking on the door of the top 5 on the emulated Atari front on Gyruss. So if anyone feels froggy, they can go in there and give it a whirl. Now, I will say the settings for playing this, the Gyruss on the home version is stock settings. So they also have a category for playing on hard if you feel froggy, but I'm not anywhere near that. Yeah, man, I thought these were 2 fun games. I enjoyed the high score challenge. We may have to put that one back on the wheel one of these times, Brinster.
Absolutely. Speaking of the wheel,
let's fire this sucker up. Bam.
Stole your line.
Yeah, you did. You suck, dude. So this week, Brent, we've added, we've added a little something we like to call Game Boy Color versus Neo Geo Pocket Color. Another one of these. And for our classic game, we've got the Sharp 68,000, Brent. That's what we've got here. So I'm going to spin this sucker. Here we go. Round and round she goes. There's a lot of bad news on this wheel. Oh God, what do we got? Oh jeez, the Tattoong Einstein, Brent.
I'm sorry. Bless you. What was
that?
No.
That's the pie piece you made me. I'm going to pull it right out of the piece here, so I can pronounce it correctly. Here it is. The Tattoong Einstein. Britt, please go and tell us what the hell is that?
That's pressed fiber.
No, what is that? What is the
Einstein?
I
got no idea.
You idiot. You've done it to us again. Well, next week we'll attempt to play games on the Tattoong Einstein. Whatever the heck that is. Another week of wacky. We're going into the realm that no one treads, my friend. You got any shout-outs you want to give before we put this thing to bed?
I just want to wish everyone a belated Merry Christmas, or Quasi Kwanzaa, or however you celebrate the end of the year. And
I think we're all celebrating the end of this year, by the way.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to a strong start in 2021.
Absolutely, absolutely. I want to thank everybody that showed up in chat today. Had a good crowd out here. Thanks, fellas, for turning out. We appreciate it. We tape live every Sunday, 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, and we hope you will come and join us and have a chat with us. We appreciate you. Brent, let's take this thing to the house. High score challenge in the books. So until next week, I bid you
have a good one, guys.
Eddie.
Thanks for joining us today. We really hope you enjoyed the show. Hello to our YouTube subscribers and our Twitch followers. A special thank you to Duncan Styles for our vector graphics and Bartbit for an amazing closing theme. Want to help keep ARG spinning for as little as $1 a month? You can do so at our new Patreon at patreon.com/ARG Presents. Just like these fine folks. Graham W. Vetke, Rollo, Olaf Hope, Anthony Jarvis, Terry Howard, Gary Heather, John Schaller, The Slow Norris, Frodo NL, Steve Rasmussen, Bernhard Lucas, Chris Folds, Mitsuyama, Jason Warnes, Rob Flack O'Hara, Andy Craig, Dave Velociraptor, Retroalgy, Hermsky, John Dykeman, Jerry Dennington, Z9K9, and Mr. B. Don't want to explain another credit card bill? That's okay too. You can help us out by leaving us a positive review on Spotify or Apple iTunes. Have an idea for a wheel piece? Email it to us at argpresents@mail.com. We film live every Sunday, 10 a.m. EDT on Twitch. Hope to see you there.